Be curious to challenge what you know, to challenge what is defined as a common truth. I think you're making a fundamental mistake if you're not considering outsourcing, nearshoring, depending different flavors from different needs. When you're going out in the market, you need to have a clear understanding of what makes you different from your competitors and what is your competitive edge. Automation in AI opens up this sort of software type of development to more personas in the company. It means that there is more opportunity to do business automation.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Devico Breakfast Bar. Here we speak with different people involved in the business landscape, share their expertise, delve into the latest tech trends and explore the ins and outs of IT outsourcing. I'm Oleg Sadikov and today I'm excited to have Egil Østhus, CEO and co-founder at Unleash. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss new episodes. Hi Egil, and thanks for joining me today.
Hi there, and great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let's start our podcast with a little blitz. I start a sentence and you continue. Entrepreneurship gave me
a lot of joy, some stress, and a lot of learnings.
Entrepreneurship deprived me.
Entrepreneurship is challenging. It's a lot of joy. It's pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone for sure. I'm not sure if that is what you're looking for, but it's definitely a bit of everything.
Okay, it depends on the guest. So I'm curious to know. I have recorded around 80 podcasts as of now, and people are saying different things, even though some of them are common, but still I'm curious to know everyone's opinion on that. My main superpower is
I don't give up. I'm consistent. I just keep going, and I think that is something that you want to have as an entrepreneur. There is good days, there are challenging days. You just need to be focused on continuing pursuing your dream, your North Star, and keep pushing.
My main weakness is
I think one thing, at least for myself, what do you call that in English? You may start doubting, right? Even being consistent, want to continue, there's always this question on your mind. Am I doing something wrong? Should I be doing something different? So I think my biggest weakness is, how do you say it in English? Having this voice in your head that is very challenging with yourself. I'm not sure if that translates well into English, but I think we can recognize that.
When I'm afraid, I
get silent. I turn myself into myself, and I think that may be challenging to some of the people around me. I probably should be more open about that.
What inspired the creation of Unleash, and how did you identify the need for the feature management in the enterprise space?
Yeah, so Unleash is a feature management tool for enterprises. It's the biggest open source feature management tool. And basically what we do, we allow developers to put new software into production without and have the possibility to decide what customers that will start using that new feature. So what inspired this? So Unleash was created as an open source project by my co-founder. He was working at a very DevOps, very mature engineering practice at the time. This is back in 2014-15. I was a VP of Eng at a larger corporate. I would say we had a ton of technical depth. We were all over the place, from everything from COBOL to the latest .NET at the time. And I were having challenges to have my team go to production, right? I wanted to release at any time. That is not super easy on a big monolith, on a lot of legacy software. When Eva, my co-founder, brought this project to my attention, it was clear that this is super strong. This is really taking away a big pain for me as a VP in a large organization. And it was super easy to sign up and say, let's explore this and see if there is an interesting company to build. And that's now 5 years ago. And here we are.
What were the biggest challenge you faced as a co-founder in the early stages of Unleash, and how did you overcome them?
I think the biggest challenge for any startup, you need to understand what pain do you solve for your customers. Because if you're not solving a problem, if you're not solving a pain, and that pain is not big enough for the customers or some customers to be willing to pay for a solution to that pain, you're going to have a hard time. So how did we overcome that? Well, we had a clear hunch that this was a relevant pain for multiple customers. I think one of the things that we decided on very early was to start sell, meaning we have the product we have, let's start to see, and does this make sense to customers? Because it's very easy and tempting to, be in your basement working on your beautiful software, and you continue to develop and you develop and you develop, and you really need to have real life customer feedback. So I think we spent about a year just exploring the market, talking to customers. So I think we spoke with more than 100 customers the first year, really digging in. Why is this important to them? How is this applicable? Why do they come to like a project such as Unleash versus the bigger competitors that was already in the market? And gaining that knowledge was crucial early phase. And then you get into new challenges as you continue to grow your business. But this is one of the first we had.
As the CEO and co-founder, what does a typical day look like for you, and how do you balance the technical and managerial aspects of your role?
A typical day is a bit of everything, I guess. It depends, of course, where you are in your journey. In the very early days, it's very operational. You just need to get the work done. We are now a team of 30 plus really talented people. That allows me to spend a bit less time on some of the operations and spend a bit more time preparing for and looking on the picture. But I think it's clear when you run a startup, there is a healthy and maybe also challenging mix of very operational. So one day could be you need to look into, is the payroll ready and to go? The next day you need to prepare your board deck for your investors, and the day after you need to think about what is the strategy and do we need to change the strategy, and strategy basically what is the sort of the long-term picture we tell to our employees and to our customers. And then again you'll move back to sort of there are an HR policy that is not in place, you need to have it. So it's a bit of everything and nothing, and it's a good mix. And how do you balance that mix? I think one of the advices I've received from multiple other early stage type of entrepreneurs is you need to challenge yourself on where do you need to allow some chaos, where do you need to pixel perfect versus where do you allow the company not to be pixel perfect. Because if you try to be perfect all over, you're going to spend a ton of time, and probably 80% of that time is not needed
and most of your money.
Yeah, so it's sort of this time is your most valuable asset, and you need to be really careful where you spend your time and attention.
With your background as a certified Scrum product owner and Agile project manager, have these methodologies influenced the way Unleash operates and serves its clients?
It's a good question. I think there is a lot of learnings from multiple ways of managing. I mean, Scrum is a methodology that comes from software development. We recognize that, being industry experts. There's a lot of learnings in Scrum from Lean best practices, which is more kind of operational. I think the one key thing that we have brought from the Scrum methodology is more of this retrospective learnings. You will make mistakes, and mistakes, well, if you learn from those mistakes and if you focus on the learnings and not on the person, I think you can come a long way. And again, with Agile, to me, is more than anything, it's about being Agile means to me adapt. So I would say you need to have a plan, but you also need to make sure that the plan needs to be updated and adapted to where you are, because you continue to learn, the stuff around you continue to change, and if you're not willing to change your plan, you are probably going to have a really good plan into something that may not be what you are looking to do, right?
Why did you decide to make Unleash open source, and what do you think are the biggest advantages for enterprises using open source software today?
Yeah, so Unleash was created open source, and it was launched as an open source, and this means that it already started to grow organically, meaning there was people to start using this open source version of Unleash. So it was sort of given when we started the business that open source is part of our heritage and it's who we are. So I would say there are some benefits of open source. I would say more than anything, open source, one of the first things that comes to mind, open source is like sort of the fundamental transparency, meaning I or our team can be in a sales call and we can sort of state, this is how we built Unleash, this is how we think about this or that, or data privacy, flexibility, scalability. I know in that call that any of the developers on that call listening to my statements to our positioning, they may very well go and look and expect our source code. And so there's nowhere to hide. So in the typical selling to engineers tends to not be super happy talking to the dressed up salespeople. And I think some of the reasons for that is that it's very tempting in a sales conversation to, you brag a bit, you provide an impression, and impression gets in reality, and then at some point later down the road, you kind of say, oh, maybe the story was a bit more flashy than what is reality. And open source really enforces you to be true to what you are, because everybody can go in and inspect on how does it really look like. So I think that is a one big benefit. I would say another benefit, in particular in this startup world, one of the questions that you often get as a software provider is, okay, can we trust that you are around? Are we going to start using you as part of our core development lifecycle process? What happens if you go away, right? It's evident that a lot of startups will not be there 5 years down the road. So as an open source provider, the open source is still there. So it's an opportunity for us to go and say, well, sure, I get your appreciative concern. Obviously, we don't believe that's going to happen. But if the worst happens, the open source project is still there. So it's a kind of an easy way for you to kind of continue your operations and consider your action based on that. So that's a good call in the sales conversations. And also, I would say from an pure enterprise strategic point of view, it takes away some of the vendor lock-in, because when I'm signing up one of our big customers, they know that if I do not deliver, if I'm not going to provide any value that they're paying for, it's a quite small step for them to move into an open source offering and continue using open source and discontinue our commercial contract. And of course, that is also put some pressure on myself and our company to continue to make sure we provide that value and over deliver on that value that we deliver to our customers. So from that angle as well, I think it's for any enterprise should consider to start looking towards an open source provider for their core products.
Unleash has grown significantly. What key strategies did you use to scale the company?
I would say we are using multiple. So obviously open source is a very powerful movement. Open source gets us in front of a lot of developers. Open source is a very easy and convenient way that is really attractive to developers. So selling to developers, this is key. Again, going back to sort of this narrative, it's not true for everybody, but the general kind of assumption there is that developers don't want to talk to the sales guy, they want to talk to a peer. So open source allows us to start that conversation with ICs, meaning individual developers, even before there is any kind of commercial conversation going. So it's sort of a first step into, this is what we do, this is how we do it, this is for you to kind of start learning. So the open source and maintaining that open source community, being available in the community, responding to our Slack community, have the ongoing conversation on GitHub is one part. In our situation also, it's pretty clear that we are addressing a known problem. So how you release software is a sort of a known challenge for a lot of engineering leaders and architects. So they are searching and researching for sort of the possible solutions, options, tools to help them do this. So this basically means we are in a value capture type of business. So for us, it's investing a ton of technical content, really powerful technical content to be available for the search terms, SEO play that is happening out there. And also we are obviously going after the biggest companies in the globe. So outbounding, kind of getting in touch with the right people, getting in touch to solve the right problem for the right person at the right company is also something we do through what is often referred to as a BDR team or SDR team.
What are some emerging trends in the enterprise software space that you're most excited about?
I think there is a few of them. I think there is obviously everybody is talking about software, and software is core of any enterprise, right? And software is also, we see the enterprise, and when I talk about enterprise, I talk about the larger enterprises. There is a ton of legacy systems that is going through this modernization. So moving away from the monolith into some microservice, not micro kind of as small as possible micro, but sort of reasonable sized type of microservices is a good trend. I think another interesting trend I see is also that our understanding and what we see is that the big drive towards the public cloud providers that we saw 5 to 10 years back is not stopping per se, but there is also, we are seeing more of this, that hybrid cloud type of approach, meaning any big organization is not going to AWS or Azure to pay a ton of money to Amazon or Microsoft. They're going there because that gives them some opportunities and capabilities that is really effective, meaning infra as code is super kind of valuable for automating a ton of manual stuff, which makes business sense. But we also see those capabilities coming into more private type of data centers. So the hybrid cloud is also a trend that we are seeing. So SaaS only is not the option. You can go hybrid cloud, meaning SaaS providers in a mix with other kind of private data center offerings. And obviously what is top of everybody's mind, the AI, Copilot and similar things is a trend that is there. It's real. I think we're still figuring out how does it impact software development and what does it mean. And I think what is clear is it will have an impact. The current observation what we're doing is that the typical repetitive task is easier to remove boilerplate code, that type of stuff is sort of easier to sort of outsource to your co-pilot or whatever. And I think that will just continue to do. So I think the software development will kind of move towards being more problem focused and sort of solving pain for your users focused rather than sort of optimizing details on a very low level algorithm.
What advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs and future C-suite leaders who want to make their mark in the tech industry?
Be curious to challenge what you know, to challenge what is defined as a common truth. I don't think there is a lot of learnings, but there is also a lot of truths that may be established that may not be as clear because the world is changing. So be curious, continue to learn, be open to admit that you're wrong and take the learning and move on. I think that is important regardless if you are seeking C-suite or whatever, but it's in a C-suite, you need to adapt. You need to kind of be on top of that and continue to develop yourself. Never stop learning.
IT outsourcing is a major trend in the tech industry. What do you think are the key advantages and disadvantages of IT outsourcing?
I would say sourcing is a critical part of any business strategy. I think you're making a fundamental mistake if you're not considering sourcing, outsourcing, nearshoring, depending different flavors from different needs. That being said, it may not be, it depends on your company, what is important to yourself, on how you apply this mix. So how we look at sourcing is there are certain aspects of your competitive advantage as a company, right? And when you're going out in the market, you need to have a clear understanding of what makes you different from your competitors and what is your competitive edge, where you have possess something that is different from everybody else that is valuable to your customers. When you start to understand this is where you need to spend your time and resources and efforts. So for us, we have a few kind of really edges, I would say. We have a very, very scalable and flexible platform, which means we need to have a really good understanding of resiliency, how to build software in a scalable, resilient way, and also how to build software that is flexible to adapt to a lot of needs that is out there. That is sort of one of our core edges. The other edge that we have invested a ton in is we truly believe that any software needs to be super easy to use. So the experience of the software end to end is super important to us. And this is core competences that for me is super important that we insource, meaning we need to have this, we need to own this, we need to develop these capabilities. And then you can start looking into other parts of your business. Maybe you have areas where you need it because it's important, but it's not where you will be the best. So for us, we, for instance, a very important one, establishing a professional 24/7 support is obviously we need to have it. That's not how we're going to win because it's given that everybody needs to have it. But there is a lot of things that you need to think about to set that up in a professional way. It means you need to have HR contracts in place, you need to have the systems in place, you need to have a proper ticketing and system in place, you need to have everything that goes together. And that's where I'm looking for my sourcing partners who can do this for me. Where are they the best for them to deliver the best capabilities? So I think what you need to look for is sort of where do I need to scale them and scaling for, let's say, software development. It's really hard to source good developers. So also to have a partner where they already have this sort of recruitment coming, they have the long tail of candidates coming, so you can go quickly up if you need to go up, or you can scale down if that is needed. That may be what you're looking for in a sourcing partner. So I think that every business should be, I think it's a fundamental mistake that you're saying, I will never do sourcing. I think it's also a fundamental mistake if you think I will do everything into sourcing, because then you're not aware of your competitive advantages. But you should be very careful of what are your core competitive advantage. How do you make sure you invest in that to keep that and make that keep developing this into an even stronger muscle? And then who are the partners that you can bring speed to your business? Because going with the correct sourcing partner is about building speed and allowing speed and adaptability to your business, and every business needs that. If you want to do everything, you're just spending a ton of time where you shouldn't.
Are there specific regions or countries that you find particularly promising for tech talent?
I would say in general, talent is available everywhere, right? So I don't think there is some areas is more talented than others. But I would say from our point of view, we have decided to focus our talent pool towards Europe, meaning we have all of our software development and we source our software development from Europe. The reason for this is not because there is no talent elsewhere, but it's more practical point of view. We are based out of Europe, so being within the European time zone makes a ton of difference for us because this is how we operate our development. Another part is also we are data privacy and security is a big selling point for our customers, unique selling point. So also from a GDPR data privacy point of view, it makes everything much easier to have developers within the European Economical Area, EU. But I've worked with great software developers from anywhere in the world, Africa, Asia, US. So I think there is a ton of areas where you can go source. What you need to consider is what are you looking for? Are you looking for a specific niche type of competence that might guide you? Is there some other like a point of view? Is there a time zone consideration that makes a difference? Time zone challenges is real. Working with the US every day, it's it really gets a bit painful because you need to start the day 1-2 p.m. and then you need to work into late hours to kind of have the overlap. And again, culture differences. Europe is easier for Europeans, even though within even Europe there are differences. So if you're going to work closely, you need to invest in having that kind of common sense of how we are operating. And so I think that talent is available everywhere, and you need to kind of think through what are the key characteristics that is not necessarily, but these type of things more than anything.
How do you see the role of IT outsourcing evolving in the tech industry, especially with advancements in automation and AI?
I think this is like any sourcing company need to adapt to this trend. I think this is a great opportunity for a sourcing company because what automation and AI does really do, it opens up this sort of software type of development to more personas in a company. It means that there is more opportunities to do business automation, and that allows a business owner to outsource the automation part if you are able to articulate very well the business needs and the business processes that you are looking to solve for your sourcing partner. So I think this is a great opportunity for a sourcing company, and I think it's also an opportunity that any business should consider to explore and take advantage of. Because as a sourcing partner, you can build niche competence that is really hard for any soft company and operation to build.
As we wrap up our conversation, what advice would you give to companies considering IT outsourcing but concerned about losing control over their technology projects?
I think the first one is something we already talked about, is have a clear point of view of what is important to you and what makes you different and what is important for your success in the market. And secondly, I think also you need to invest in the partnership. If you're going to go to a sourcing partner and say, hey, I just need 2 random people to do this random work, it's probably not to be very easy for you. If you're looking to do a partnership saying, hey, let's invest in this partnership long term for you guys to understand our business and what is important to us and for us to learn how you operate, I think you are set up for a great success. So I would say you need to invest in the partnership, and if you want to trust your partner to take upon work, big, small, etc., without investing in that partnership, it's more difficult to make this a success for you. So I would say invest in the partnership more so than anything.
That's a very important aspect of the partnership. If you enjoy our discussion and want to stay updated on the future episodes, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you will not miss out on the latest insights and conversations from the Devico Breakfast Bar. Egil, thanks very much for joining me today. It was a pleasure for me having you here with me. I'm sure the information will be valuable for my auditory. The content, the insights you shared, I find them important, at least for most of the people. You're a very interesting guest on my podcast.
Thank you. It was great to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. See you in the next episode.